Hello, my name is Dr. Dympna O'Sullivan, and I'm joining you from Technological University Dublin in Dublin, Ireland. At Technological University Dublin, I lead a research institute called the Digital Futures Research Hub, where we are really focused on designing human-centric AI technologies. So those are technologies that are aligned with human values with positive impacts for society and the environment. So today I'm going to present to you my work on developing assistive technologies for persons with dementia. And this work follows very much a co-design approach where we work very closely with people with dementia and their carers in order to design and develop this technology. So just a little bit of background to the issue. There are more than 55 million people in the world living with dementia, and there are 10 million new cases diagnosed every year. In Ireland, where I live, there's an estimated 64,000 people living with dementia, but that's expected to almost triple in the next 20 years. And, you know, for every person with dementia, it's estimated that another 3 people support their care. And informal carers, they are family members or friends that take care of people with dementia. They make up about 6% of the Irish population. So what are the societal consequences of dementia? Well, what we see is a diminished quality of life and a loss of independence. You know, dementia progressively affects memory, thinking, and daily functioning, and can lead to memory loss and confusion, difficulty with daily activities, perhaps a loss of orientation, and an increased risk and safety concerns. We also see that dementia places a really considerable emotional and financial burden on families and carers. We see that, you know, people with dementia have a higher utilization of healthcare services than those without. They have longer hospital stays. And this is all set against an acute shortage of nursing home beds in Ireland. So, and the cost to the Irish economy is estimated at 2 billion annually. So given the gravity of the situation, I think we really need to start about new ways of addressing this public health challenge. And around the world, I suppose national healthcare systems are really shifting towards a community-based care model with the aim of enabling people with dementia to live independently at home, but with localized support. We know that this is, I say, cost effective, and the average cost of a nursing home bed in Ireland is almost €1,600 per week. But, you know, home-based care must be accompanied by high quality care services, and without the right support, there's a gap between how people could actually function, how they actually function and how they could potentially function. So we would see technology as being one of these high quality services, you know, to support people to live at home. But most technology for people with dementia focuses on safety and not on proactively supporting the person or their carer. And the research does show that people with mild to moderate dementia are very capable actors in self-management, and our extensive stakeholder engagement, it confirms this, that many people with dementia are very keen to take an active role in their own care and their own self-management. So our premise is that people with dementia should be at the center of care decisions, and that appropriately designed technology can be used to provide proactive support, enabling them to live independently at home. So the aims of our work are to develop a platform and to co-design a platform, a digital health platform that's aimed at persons who are, you know, concerned about their brain health as they age, persons with mild cognitive impairment, persons with early onset dementia, or persons with mild to moderate dementia and their informal carers. And we, you know, must ensure that this platform also supports the family carers in providing care, but not only in providing care, but also looking after their own health and well-being, because often these are an elderly person, a spouse themselves. So our work, as I say, has undertaken this co-design approach where we've spent a lot of time trying to understand lived experiences, challenges and needs of people with dementia and their carers. We have conducted interviews, focus groups and co-design sessions with 170 different dementia stakeholders. And these are people living with age-related cognitive impairments, informal carers, healthcare professionals and staff from dementia charities. And these are some of the gaps that we've identified in our work. Fundamental problem impacting the effective management of dementia is a late formal diagnosis. In Ireland, there's usually a very long gap. It could potentially be up to 2 years between when a person presents to their GP or other service with memory concerns and then a formal diagnosis. And as a consequence, there's missed opportunities for timely interventions, which can then ultimately slow the rate of progression. So we see that technology, can fill this gap to delay progression while a person is waiting for access to services. There's currently no formal care plans for home care. This is a really big thing. There are no formal care plans that you give to a person when they're diagnosed to support them to live independently at home. Many of the services are geared towards older adults and not for those with early onset dementia. And that's about 10% of the dementia population in Ireland. That's dementia diagnosed under 65. And we see that, the needs of the informal carers are really poorly understood. There's a real lack of support for informal carers, both in terms of educating them how to look after a person with dementia, but also, support for their own well-being. So our proposed solution is an assistive technology that will, an assistive technology system that will slow progression of the condition by allowing people to better manage their systems. And we hope that this will, fill the gap in delayed provision of services. The solution is focused really on maintaining a sense of purpose and identity for the person with dementia. We see that often this is something that the dementia diagnosis really impacts the person's confidence. It really, there's still in some cases a sort of a stigma attached to it, and people lose their confidence. So it's really important that that sense of purpose and that identity is maintained. And as I say, it's really about delaying progression by delivering, the relevant interventions and content at the right time. And as I said, we are following this co-design methodology to really understand the lived experience of people with dementia and their carers. So from our co-design workshops, this is what we have proposed as, what should be part of our solution. We need one structured care plan that all stakeholders can contribute to and access. As I said, there's a lack of formal structured care plans. Information is often provided on a piece of paper, which is often lost or forgotten. Different services have different care plans. If you're a person with dementia, you might be seeing a speech and language therapist, a gerontologist, your GP, a physiotherapist. So, it's very difficult to kind of understand, how all of these, it's very difficult to understand maybe the outcomes from all these different visits and then relay that at another visit. And that has another impact on their healthcare professionals because there's often no follow-up on referrals. Did the person attend? What was the outcome? So healthcare professionals spend a lot of time on the phone trying to track this information down. A care plan is really also needed for the informal carer. Informal carers experience stress. They have a large burden of care. They need support to look after a person with dementia, but also to look after, their own health and reduce their own stress. It's really important to have in this technology continuous, easily accessible orientation cues. Orientation is really fundamental for people with dementia because it underpins their ability to feel safe, to feel confident, and to feel, control in their lives. Because as dementia progresses, individuals, they often lose track of time, place, people, and that causes distress and reduces your independence. It's very important to be able to set goals, right, in relation to activities and intervention and to support tracking of those, because setting goals, that promotes independence and agency, and it provides structure and routine. And we also feel, there's a lot of, in the literature, there's a lot of work on, supporting what are called activities of daily living. So there are activities around, for example, eating, dressing, hygiene, and so on. But we also need to provide support to engage in meaningful activities, and those are the activities that maintain that sense of purpose and support your cognitive and your emotional well-being. Right? So they're your kind of hobbies and things that you have always engaged in. And so there really should be support for engaging in a wider set of activities. And education then is also required on how to live well with dementia, but that should be organised by the stage of dementia. Right? We often see that, when a person gets a diagnosis, they get all of the information all at once. Right? There should be a kind of progressive disclosure of information as we go through. In terms of other needs that we've found, there's a real need for support for your psychological well-being. People, they don't get access in Ireland to counselling or psychotherapeutic support, even though a dementia diagnosis, brings worry and managing those symptoms of worry can really have an impact on your mental health. we have reports of people not accepting their diagnosis. So it's very important to maintain the emotional well-being because it impacts mood, identity, relationships, quality of life. There must be support to engage in physical activity, maintaining your physical health. That again supports your cognitive function and improves your mood and your emotional health. And, getting outside is good for well-being, and it can facilitate social interaction, for both the person with dementia and their carer. And of course, engaging in physical activity can help prevent falls when falls really are an issue for people living with dementia. It should also support social interaction with peers. Many people living with dementia stop socializing due to perceived stigma of dementia or lack of confidence. So again, to promote and to keep maintaining those social activities is really, really important. People with dementia also, many of them, they're older people, they've been managing additional comorbidities, diabetes, hypertension, and so on. And the complexity of care there. So, for example, polypharmacy, multiple medications are difficult to manage when you have reduced executive function. So, there has to be support for managing those. We need signposts, to the available services, clear information on the pathways involved in dementia care, including, getting a diagnosis, living well with dementia at home, organizing, your finances and so on, help with all of those kind of things. And also signposts to assistive technologies. People, there's often a lack of understanding of what assistive technologies are available to support people with dementia. And not only where the technologies are and what they are, but how do you use those technologies is important. So, these are the features that we have implemented then in our technology. So we have a schedule and a calendar, a very prominent dementia clock that orientates the user. And that also provides, reminders that can support people with dementia in remembering their appointments and their daily routines. We have included information on education, signposting to services. These platforms, they have to provide sort of tailored information and direct information to dementia users about, dementia-friendly community services, where those services are in the community. We've integrated technology for psychological well-being. So this allows users to track mood. We have mindfulness activities in there, relaxation exercises that can really help promote emotional stability and reduce anxiety. We have included tools for cognitive rehabilitation. So these are interactive brain training tools that help maintain your memory and your attention skills. And they can be, again, sort of tuned to the person's stage of their condition. So that it doesn't get frustrating that either, those brain training exercises are too easy or too hard. We have put in meaningful and stimulating activities. So these are personalized activity suggestions. So, for example, music or reminiscence games that keep the individual kind of engaged and fulfilled. We have put in informal carer training. So we have included online modules that can give family carers practical strategies to support daily care needs. There is information on, engaging in physical activity. So, it depends on kind of the stage of the condition, but maybe early in the condition, this could be around wearables that can promote gentle exercise and track movement. But over time, those can kind of change, and we have different sensors involved that will promote those kind of activities. We also have, the functionality to set and to track your intervention goals. So goal setting features, they really help individuals and their carers to monitor progress, but also to adjust their support strategies over time. There's support for social interaction, communication tools to allow people with dementia to connect to family, friends, their peer network supports. And then, tools for health and well-being monitoring and management. So those remote monitoring systems can track vital signs and daily activities to alert caregivers to potential issues. The next stage of our platform is we are moving to looking at the potential for artificial intelligence in order to, to bring our platform, let's say, to the next level. So some of the potential that we see for artificial intelligence include, personalized support. So AI can be used to adapt communication, to adapt reminders, and care recommendations based on each individual's needs and their care preferences. AI, again, that sort of cognitive assistance, being able to provide orientation cues, memory prompts, and help with daily tasks in natural conversational ways. We've seen from our co-design work a real, a real embracing from people with dementia for sort of voice-based support and conversational-based support. So LLMs have a really key role to play here. So we see, people are very keen to interact, say, with technologies like Alexa, for example. And, so to sort of remind them to take their medication or to remind them about their morning routines. But another thing we see is issues around sort of multi-step activities. So your morning hygiene routine involves brushing your teeth, brushing your hair, for example. Can we use LLMs to provide, in a voice-based or a natural conversational way, help with those kind of multi-step activities? Cooking a meal, for example, would be another multi-step activity. We also see real potential for artificial intelligence, in particular generative AI, for information simplification. So we've been doing a lot of work using some of the LLMs, the GPT models, to try and simplify complex information into sort of clear and accessible language with visuals or summaries. What we're seeing there is sometimes it's oversimplified, or we still have, of course, the issue with some of the hallucinations that we get from these models. So it's kind of making up information that wasn't originally asked for. But there's definitely something to be looked at here, particularly around in terms of that kind of progressive disclosure of information as the condition progresses. And then finally, we're really looking at AI in terms of that sort of emotional and social engagement. So there's a move, of course, as you know, towards kind of AI companions. And in the context of people with dementia, these could be companions that could reduce loneliness, either through, conversation, but also reminiscence. So thinking about AI as a tool for reminiscence therapy. So you're talking to a person, hello, Mary, tell me about the time you worked at the bakery in, Rialto in Dublin. And you can engage a person in that conversation and bring them back to kind of a happier time. And that can be used for a kind of emotional and behavioral support. So that's a kind of whistle-stop tour of the work we've been doing at the Digital Futures Research Hub at TU Dublin in developing assistive technologies for people with dementia. I'm very happy to provide any more information either in the Q&A, which follows this session, or I'm, of course, very happy at any point to speak to people about collaboration opportunities. You can find me online on the TU Dublin Technological University Dublin website, or you can contact me using my email address, which is given here, dympna.o'sullivan@tudublin.ie. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. O'Sullivan, for your insightful sharing. It is exciting to know how you work to co-create innovative and impactful technologies. Now, Dr. O'Sullivan is with us. Hello, Dr. O'Sullivan.
Hello, nice to see you.
Yeah, let's take a look at the questions raised by our audience. The first question is, for the co-creation process, what talent or expertise did you include in your center to innovate the tech for dementia care?
Sure. Yeah, I suppose one of the things that we are that we feel very strongly about is that a transdisciplinary team approach is really important to the co-creation process. We work very closely with community organisations like the Alzheimer's Society of Ireland or the Engaging Dementia Group or the Dementia Research Network Ireland. And we work, I suppose, in a PPI capacity, public patient involvement in research, where we work with the community organizations right through from, recruitment of people to take part in our co-design sessions. We have a PPI panel where, for example, we work with that PPI panel, which are community representations plus people with dementia, to review the study protocols and the co-design workshops that we're going to use, that they're appropriate, that they're understandable, that they're accessible, before we even start the work. And then throughout, we sort of, we feed back very regularly as well to that panel. the two people, I suppose, who've been really leading our co-design workshops, one has a background in human-computer interaction and in digital accessibility, and the other person has a background in psychology and is a real expert in technology adoption for older adults. And, you know, so they lead the co-design workshops, but our sort of technology experts are always in the room as well, trying to kind of understand, well, how do we take what we're seeing as requirements that are coming from, you know, sort of take what people are telling us and then translate those into software requirements. But I think one of the things that's really important is that kind of constant feedback loop, you know, that at the end of at the beginning of each session, you kind of reiterate what happened in the previous session, you know, set the goals for the new session, and feedback, you know, after sessions in a very lay and accessible way to people, to, you know, to make sure that their contributions are valued.
So it is very important to have a team with multiple discipline backgrounds and work together for a common goal.
Absolutely, yes, yeah.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the second question. Some users may feel anxious when they get touch with new technology. So how do you ease users' anxiety to take the first step and let them get to use technology?
Yeah, it's great. It's a great question, and particularly with the older group that we're working with. I definitely, I suppose one of the things that we would see, we see very different experience of people of technology, you know, sort of people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. There's a real difference sort of as you go through the decades with older people with technology. People in their 50s and 60s have probably, you know, use technology at work and they're more au fait with it, you know, now that they're retired. People in their 70s and 80s, we know, for example, particularly in Ireland, about 65% of people over 65 are considered digitally excluded. So it's really all about taking that very strong human-computer interaction and digital accessibility lens to the technology design. You know, the features, I suppose, that we would be designing, you know, we would kind of go back to our co-design groups, to our participants multiple times to design a feature. So something, for example, like, you know, the dementia clock, which is a very prominent feature on our application, you know, it's sort of sketched out, we go back, we reiterate, we could go through 3 or 4 design cycles per one feature. The other thing I think around the anxiety, so there's the design, so that it's aligned with users' preferences, but there has to be a kind of a training as well, you know, a sort of human part to that. And so when we are, you know, deploying this technology, we would go to people's homes, we would get the technology set up, we would go through a number of sessions with them, but then we also kind of maintain a sort of a helpline as well to go through that. I think ultimately, you know, in a sort of a whole systems approach where, you know, where this sort of technology is becoming more normal in the community, I think we need community health professionals that can also help with technology. So, for example, you know, public health nurses who are in the community also have some sort of training in assistive technology, and, you know, not just the clinical aspects. And I think that's how you sort of join the dots there with sort of the people on the ground, let's say, to do the technology help.
I see. Thank you for your response. Let's take a look at the third question. Usually, how long for your co-creation innovation cycle? Do you think it is a very lengthy process? And what do you think about its practicality from your experience?
Yeah, it is a lengthy process. I mean, there's no way around that, right? If you really want to do co-design with people and not for people, you have to invest the time. It's also, I mean, it's thinking about the target audience that you're working with. So, you know, persons with dementia, you can't do day-long sessions. People get very tired, right? People, you know, they find it difficult to concentrate for you know, large lengths of time. So typically, like one co-creation session for us would be about 2 hours. That's what we kind of see as after, you know, much experience, we see that as kind of an optimal time. So, for example, to just say the front end of our application there, we would tend to have done that over 6 to 8 co-creation sessions. And that would usually take place over about a 3 to 4 month period, because, you know, after each session we go back, we, you know, analyze the results, we create mock-ups and wireframes, actually using tools now like, you know, generative AI tools that you can create prototype interfaces with, tools like Lovable. We've used a lot of that to go back with mock-ups that can be created. So as typically, and then sorry, that's just the creation. And then there's the sort of usability testing, which would probably be about another month at the end, again, iterative. So 4 to 5 months, I would say, you know, for, let's say, we're talking about kind of the visual interface. And it's lengthy, but I suppose we would see that we definitely do see better adoption from the people who have been involved in the development of the technology. There's better buy-in, there's more trust, all of those kind of issues. Because it's not just the usability of the technology is something we found, it's also people's trust in the technology. You know, where's their data going? How's it being stored? Who has access to it? Those kind of questions come up a lot as well in the co-creation sessions. And I think as we're moving more and more towards AI and artificial intelligence, those questions will become kind of even more pertinent. So I think the co-creation sessions are not so much just about technology design, but kind of an education and a literacy piece about technology, what it can do, how it can help. What are some of the potential challenges? You know, what are some of the potential risks? But giving people the information so that they can make their own mind up about it. So it is a lengthy process, but I suppose we would see that it's that's an investment of your time, hopefully leading to better adoption.
I can see that the process has to be very well designed, and it has to be user-centered. Otherwise, people may get very overwhelmed by the process and cannot achieve its original goal, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, let's see the next question. How do you see the need to promote AI literacy and AI skill set needed in the care sector?
Yeah, so okay, in the care sector, yeah, I mean this is enormous. We would see certainly in the care center, this care sector in Ireland, it's probably one of the most low tech sectors in the country. Digital tools are not well developed or not well embedded in the care sector. You know, another, I think, issue we have in the care sector in Ireland, and I'm not sure if it's in other places, that we have a lot of temporary workers, you know, kind of come in and leave quite soon. We have, you know, issues around language and those kind of things. But I mean, AI literacy is just it's so important for all sectors right now at the moment, right? The care sector, I think, has particular challenges. In I think, first of all, it's a very, as I say, a very low tech sector to begin with. But also you know, these are often in the care sector, we're talking about vulnerable adults, vulnerable people, you know, very sort of, we are also kind of thinking around issues around, you know, not just informed consent, but informed consent for your data. So, you know, AI literacy, I think it's needed for everyone, but it does need to be kind of, I suppose, specialized to different kind of sectors. And I think in the care sector, it's those pieces around, you know, consent, informed consent when it comes to data privacy, data sharing, you know, shared decision making between you know, a person with dementia and, you know, for example, a family carer, those kind of things. So we're in a different project. We're actually looking at an AI literacy program for older adults in general. And we do see those kind of same questions come up all the time around data sharing, privacy, security. And I think they're very pertinent here as well.
Thank you. That's all of the questions we have so far. And thank you, Dr. O'Sullivan, for sharing with us your co-creation approach in the Digital Futures Research Hub. we can definitely share your joy when you see the inventions are actually meeting the needs for the people with dementia all around the world. Yeah, thank you for your sharing.
Thank you so much.
See you. Coming up next, we'll take a look at the very important reference in developing tech towards people with dementia. We are glad to have invited Professor Cathy Treadaway to be our speaker. Cathy is the Professor Emeritus at Cardiff Metropolitan University and Design Director of HKCSS by LAUGH Ltd. She developed compassionate design, an approach that helps ensure people living with advanced dementia are central to the design and innovation process. Cathy also led UK government-funded research, which resulted in the creation of HKCSS, a therapeutic comforter that has been shown to reduce anxiety, enhance communication, and increase well-being. HKCSS is now available to purchase globally. HKCSS by LAUGH Ltd is partnered by Alzheimer's Society in the UK, and each HKCSS show raises money for dementia research and innovation. Let's welcome Cathy for sharing with us her authentic approach on compassionate design. Cathy, please.
I'm Cathy Treadaway. I was the principal investigator on the LAUGH project, an HRC-funded project investigating how to design playful objects for people living with advanced dementia. From the LAUGH research, we developed a product called HKCSS, which is now commercially manufactured and available all over the world. HKCSS is a therapeutic comforting device. It's a soft comforter that has long arms and legs that are weighted, that wrap around the body. Inside HKCSS, there's a beating heart and a little piece of electronics that enables music to be played, or sounds, or stories, or poetry. Music can be streamed, or a conversation can be recorded on it. We received grant funding from HRC to investigate how to design for people in the advanced stages of the disease. So we worked with the care home group Pobble, people living with dementia, family members, carers, as well as a whole host of different academics, technologists and science material scientists, and people with medical and psychology expertise. The lady that we designed HKCSS for lived in a Pobble care home where we are here. The first time she felt it, it was wrapped around her, she was sat in a wheelchair, and you could see her relax and snuggle into the softness. And the staff just were in pieces. We came back again 3 months later, and the difference in her was incredible. She was up and out of bed, she was eating again. HKCSS was her baby, and she was very proud of it, and that was enabling her to socialise with the other residents.
Oh, straight away we could see a difference. As you could see, Priscilla, she absolutely loves it. And the thing is as well, it's another tool to put in place to try before having to use medication.
So we had these findings with a bigger cohort that was showing that HKCSS was beneficial and supported improvement in well-being. So at Cardiff Met University, we set up a spin-out company with their support, with the sole aim of getting HKCSS into the hands of more people. So we applied for the Alzheimer's Society Accelerator Programme at that point, and we were successful. We worked with their innovation team, who helped explore ways that we could make HKCSS into the product that you see today.
We are all about impact. We want to make the best impact that we can on people affected by dementia. So we want to invest in the most impactful solutions that we can scale. So HKCSS was already showing from the various studies that had gone into it and the trials that they'd done within care homes and hospitals, the impact that had happened, but also the impact that could have. People affected by dementia were involved in the packaging and how it was going to get to market. And so I think from the research throughout, there's been that strong involvement and that strong evidence base. So that's why it was really exciting to work with HKCSS.
So I think for Pobl as a whole, it's made us rethink what care and support is. Some of the stories, which I could go on and on about, have been amazing. We've had individuals who've been able to go and do presentations on a stage. It's opened our eyes, it's given us some learnings and some awareness that we didn't know we needed.
To date, we've got over 5,000 hugs out there in the world being enjoyed. Since then, we've received some further funding from the HRC to explore further benefits. When we look at health conditions and how we might support people, there's always a reaction to use a kind of medical model. I think by thinking about using a creative and arts approach to addressing some of the basic fundamental needs, it allows us to really tap into what it means to be human. And we don't always have to respond and support people through a medical way, and arts and humanities really have a way of doing that, of tapping into that.
Over the next few minutes, I'd like to talk to you about compassionate design. This is the design approach that we used to develop HUG. The LAUGH research from which HUG was developed aimed to understand how to develop designs for people living with dementia, and specifically how to develop playful objects that would comfort, soothe, and help people living in the advanced stages of the disease. As a designer, we need to understand what people's needs are, what they like, what they prefer. But people living in the advanced stages of dementia are often very withdrawn and find it difficult to communicate, to tell you what their needs and preferences are. But actually, they are the best ones to tell you what they want. And they are still there, and they need to be listened to, and they need to be seen. And that's where compassionate design comes in. So compassionate design was developed from research with people living with advanced dementia that I did prior to the LAUGH project. And this way of working with people was used during the LAUGH project to test out whether or not it was helpful, and we used it in order to develop the prototype objects that we created for the LAUGH project, one of which was HUG. So what is compassionate design methodology? Well, as I said, it's a way to guide the design process and to focus the designer's attention on the key things that are really vital. And of course, the most important thing is loving kindness for the individual for whom you're designing. And so love is at the very centre of compassionate design. We found that three things were particularly significant: personalisation, connecting, and sensory. And I'm just going to run through those three things and what they mean. So a person living with advanced dementia often will have withdrawn within themselves and find it difficult to communicate. And also they will have a sense of loss of their own sense of self, who they are, what they did through their life, what their name is, who the people are that are around them. So it's vital for us to design in ways in which that person's lived experience can be remembered, to remind themselves who they are and the things that are important to them. When somebody's in the advanced stages of the disease, memory is a problem, and they're living moment by moment. Things that require memory or things that require anticipation become difficult. But in the moment, our senses are vital. And so if a design focuses on the sensory attributes of that concept, then it's going to enhance the person's ability to use it. And of course, as people age, hearing can be impaired or there may be vision loss. So being aware of the sensory elements in design are vital. And of course, the connection between the lived experience of the world and with other people is vital. So design needs to help people to connect. So we created this methodology and tested it out through the LAUGH project. And at the end of that research, we created the Compassionate Design Toolkit for Designers, which is a free PDF download available from the hug.world website. As you heard in the video, we involved a lot of people in our research, over 170 different individuals, experts with all kinds of knowledge and understanding of dementia, health professionals, technologists, materials scientists, and academics. But we also included people living with dementia, both at the earlier stage and in the late stages of the disease. Vital, keeping the person at the center of the design process. And you can see here some of the people that we worked with. We worked with a small number of people living with advanced dementia and their families and their carers, and we created portraits of those people in order to really keep them central. And you can see here some pencil sketches, but we also created pen portraits of these people to understand, to really see them, to really know what their preferences and needs were. Not just the preferences and needs that they had experienced through their lives, but also at that moment when we met them. And you can see in the pictures underneath some of the design prototypes that we developed. But of all the design prototypes that we created, there was one that stood out, and that was Hug. And here is Thelma, as we mentioned in the film, the lady that we developed the very first Hug for. Each of the objects that were developed, the prototype objects that were developed for the LAUGH project, were bespoke. They were made specifically for the people that we worked with. And Hug was made specifically for Thelma. Compassionate design, keeping loving kindness for Thelma at the heart of the process. We needed to know what she needed, what she wanted. This lady, when we first met her, was bedbound, unable to communicate, and was thought to not be likely to live for very much longer. Her general health was poor, and she didn't wish to join in with activities in the care home anymore. We asked Anne, this lady in the picture, her carer, what Thelma might need. And the answer was, all she needs really is a hug. And so that was how Hug was originally developed. Compassionate design then. Hug is sensory. It's very soft, it's snuggly. She nestled her head into it when she first had it, feeling that softness, the heartbeat, that rhythmic beating heart, which gave her comfort, the weighted arms that made her feel secure. She felt it was like a baby on her lap. Inside Hug, there is a music player, and Thelma had her favourite playlist of songs on there, so it was personalised to her. And the connection, yes, you can see it there between her and Anne. After 3 months of having Hug, Thelma was up and out of bed. She was beginning to speak a few words again. You can see her speaking to Anne here. She began to mix with the other residents. She had her baby to show them. Hug was connecting her back into the everyday life of the care home. The staff were amazed at the response that Hug had on Thelma. She went on to live for a further 9 months. This lady had been a lady that fell all the time. After she had Hug, she never fell again. She lived with a far better quality of life than she had done before Hug, and the staff said that they really believed that the only thing that had changed in Thelma's life was that she had Hug. Having seen the success from Hug with Thelma, we knew we had to see whether it would have the same effect on other people. And so we approached the Welsh Government for funding to do a much larger study. And we were successful in gaining funding and carried out further research, both with a care home in Cardiff, and you can see the care home team here who undertook the study, and with an NHS hospital, also in Cardiff. You can see here the findings from the care home study. Hug was definitely doing something special for people living with dementia and improving their well-being. And for those who saw an improvement, it was also helping their cognitive and functional ability as well, something quite amazing for a neurodegenerative disease. Hugs went into the hospital right at the start of the pandemic, which was brilliant in some ways because that was when people needed a hug, but not so good for the research. We were unable to replicate the same research protocol that we had in the care home. However, as soon as restrictions eased, we did qualitative interviews with the medical teams that had prescribed Hug to patients with care plans. The patients that Hugs had gone to were people in the dementia wards and in the stroke rehabilitation wards. And the findings from those interviews confirmed the findings from the previous studies, which was that Hug indeed helps reduce anxiety. The hospital research also showed other things. Hug helps communication. People relaxed. They were able to take their medication more easily. They ate more, they drank more, and they were more compliant with medical procedures. So having found that Hug was definitely doing something special for people, not just Thelma, we knew we needed to scale up, and the university helped us to start a business, and we needed to look for funding in order to manufacture Hug and get it out there into the hands of people that needed it. And that's where Alzheimer's Society UK came in. We applied for their accelerator funding, and we were successful in 2021 and became their accelerator partner. And a consequence of that is every Hug that's sold helps raise money for dementia research and for innovation. The wonderful thing about working with the Alzheimer's Society was it gave us access to their Dementia Voices groups, people living with and affected by dementia, and they were able to help us develop our initial prototypes into a manufactured product. Again, compassionate design, keeping people at the very heart of the design process. You can see here a group who are giving us feedback on the Hug product. And it wasn't just the product that they helped us with. They also helped with the packaging and with the instruction leaflets that are within the box and on our website. And having people living with dementia at the heart of the process obviously did something special, because we won a number of design awards for HUG. We have a website, and on that website there's all kinds of information and research and information leaflets, videos, and also news stories. You can read about our research on there, and you can buy a HUG. And the research continues. We currently have a research project with a university and a care home company ongoing in the Netherlands at the moment, looking at HUG's benefit for people when they sleep. Watch the website for further news on that study, but early findings are showing that HUG does in fact help people living with dementia sleep better. HUGs are now available all over the world. And in Southeast Asia, they're available to buy through Alpha Life Care in Australia. And the website is here on this slide. But not only are HUGs available for people to buy around the world, but the compassionate design methodology is now being taught in countries all around the world in schools of design and universities. And not just for artists and designers, but also computer scientists and engineers are learning all about how to keep people at the centre of the design process. And with that in mind, and to ensure that people living with dementia have the final say, I'd like to end my presentation with a short BBC News film that was made without our knowledge. We had nothing to do with this, but it shows people living with dementia using HUG in a care home in the UK shortly after the end of lockdown. So enjoy the video, enjoy what they have to say, and thank you for listening.
Now then, have you ever heard of, that's it there, it's a HUG doll? Well, we hadn't either. Not until our reporter Emma Snow found out that Willcroft Care Home in Spondon had been getting some pretty astonishing reactions from many of their residents suffering from dementia. The dolls provide a huge amount of comfort, so important, especially after the last couple of years where human contact has been so limited.
He's lovely. He is lovely. This is a HUG doll. It was designed in 2019 specifically for people with advanced dementia.
They're very peculiar looking, and when we first got them we weren't sure how the residents would take to them. With residents with dementia, sensory is a big thing, so as soon as they touched them and felt them, then they automatically just hugged them like they would a child or a baby.
The dolls have a battery-powered heart,
I can hear it,
which comforts residents when they hug it.
It sounds like a heartbeat, just like with a child, but not only is it a heartbeat, you can also download music onto the device. So again, they can sit and listen to their favourite music.
6 of these HUG dolls have been introduced by this care home in Spondon. They've only had them 2 weeks, and the reaction from the residents has been amazing.
So we specifically gave one of the HUG dolls to a resident who'd come into the home during lockdown. It was a big wrench for her to leave home, and she does experience anxiety and distress at times. And as soon as we gave her the HUG doll, it just ease that anxiety. It's very rare she's without it now. I think the past 2 years have been really, really difficult with the lack of human contact, the lack of family hugs and touch, so actually they couldn't have come at a better time.
I'll look after you and keep you warm.
Emma Snow, BBC's Midlands Today, Spondon.
Thank you, Cathy, for sharing with us your journey to accumulate all this knowledge through practice. Now we'll accept questions from our online audience. Hello, Cathy. Thank you for your sharing. Let's take a look at the questions we have from our audiences. So the portraits of users are very touching to record the participation in the innovation process. How do you train up the care staff when you start your ideation process in care setting?
So the care staff are not the researchers. The research team were from the university, but we worked very closely with those people delivering professional care. In the care home study, we did use the carers, and they were trained by a consultant occupational therapist, Jackie Poole, who you may have heard of because she's written a number of books on how to undertake evaluation with people living with dementia. So she was in fact the person that trained the staff to collect the data. But in the Thelma study, in the original study, it was the research team that went in to work in the care home to do the evaluation study.
I see. The next question is, since when you think that we need the compassionate design approach, and what were the limitations in tech innovation before?
I think over the last 10 years, people have become much more aware of the importance of well-being and happiness. And I think that the design approaches prior to that simply were focusing on user-centered design, perhaps, and maybe positive design, so looking at benefits to happiness and well-being. But when you think of somebody in the advanced stages of dementia, they can't tell you. They can't explain to you what they need and what they want. And so there needs to be a slightly different approach. So compassionate design builds on both user-centered design and positive design. And it brings just a new, more sensitive angle that's suited for people who are cognitively impaired, people who aren't able to communicate what their needs and preferences are, and that rely on the empathy and understanding of the design team that are going to create new products for them.
I see. So the compassionate design is actually tailored for people with like cognitive impairment or with advanced dementia who cannot really communicate verbally very well?
That's right, exactly that. So that the researcher or the designer is looking on the user with love and kindness and compassion and trying to really understand what their needs are. And that's why the drawing came into it, and writing pen portraits, writing descriptions of the person and their life, so that you really see the person, so that the person who's doing the design work can really empathize with what their needs and preferences are.
I see. Thank you. Let's look at the next question. Do you think why the healthcare or care setting is willing to adopt the use of a hug? And do you receive feedback from them? What are the key elements?
Yes, we're finding that both in the hospital setting and in the care home, hug is being used and is being welcomed across not only the UK, but in many countries around the world now. So I'm just looking at the question, do we receive feedback? I think that last film that you saw was clear feedback from a care home setting, from the individuals who are using hug, that actually, yes, they're benefiting from having hugs within the care home. I would say not everybody is going to need or want a comforting object, a cuddle technology, if you like. It doesn't work for everybody, but I think there are times in most people's lives when you need comfort and you need companionship, and you need that sense of feeling that you're loved and cherished. And I think somehow Hug manages to do that for people.
I see. The next question is about the design of Hug. So what were the considerations when you choose the materials for Hug? Like sometimes care staff may prefer those materials which are easy to clean or for medical use materials. So what is your consideration in it?
Yes, that was really important to us as well. And we worked with the National Health Service in the UK and took advice from them. So the materials that we've used are washable. You take out the little electronic module that's inside that creates the heartbeat, which is this here. That comes out. The soft plush body of Hug goes in the washing machine and can be dried in a tumble dryer. Also, in situations where Hug needs to be cleaned very quickly, you can use an antimicrobial spray on the fabric surface. We chose these particular materials because of their sensory qualities. So that it's very, very soft and comforting. And on the end of the limbs, there's a very soft satin ribbon type fabric, which is particularly skin-like. So it feels very gentle on the skin. So yes, the materials, very, very important. And we worked with materials scientists. We took advice from health professionals as well. Yes, of course, there are issues around infection control, but it's the same with a teddy bear or with any other kind of object. Do you share a teddy bear around a hospital ward? Probably not. And the same would go for a Hug. It's something that is really for the individual because people bond with them. They become very attached in the same way as you would with a teddy bear. So yes, it's fully washable. It's fully compliant with the needs of healthcare professionals in terms of being washable, etc. But it is meant to be something that is an object that people attach to, you know, it's their friend, it's their companion.
It is a very quality and users-friendly choice of material that you use.
Yeah.
Okay, the next question, could you share some feedback from the user with dementia? Like our audience is interested to know more about the feedback from these kind of users.
Well, again, I would just say the film, I think at the end, showed the kind of feedback that we get from users who are living with dementia. For a lot of people, having something there that they can connect to that's sensory, that's comforting, will reduce anxiety and agitation. Music is magic for a lot of people living with advanced dementia and helps to calm them too. And onto the little unit inside, you can drop sound files, so it doesn't have to be music. It could be nature sounds, it could be a story or a poem, it could be conversation from family members. So there are all kinds of ways in which Hug can comfort people.
Okay, so the next question should be from our Hong Kong audience. Is the Hug available in Hong Kong market yet?
Yes, it's available through Alpha Life Care, and on one of the slides I put the web address for that. So if you look on the website, you'll be able to find that.
Okay, that's all of the questions we have. Thank you once again, Cathy, for your dialogue. And we hope to learn more from you in future. Yeah, and let's get in touch when you are in Hong Kong.
It's been a real pleasure to be with you, and I hope you've had a great time at the conference.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. The coming session by the local commentator will be conducted in Cantonese. Please reach the language channel if needed. 以下係工作坊9 共創用家為本嘅認知障礙照顧科技本地評論環節。我哋好高興可以邀請到賽馬會耆智園副總經理崔志文博士 Kenny 為我哋分享。Kenny 從事腦退化症照顧以及研究超過20年，現任賽馬會耆智園副總經理以及香港中文大學腦退化課程聯合總監。Kenny 專注於學術研究、專業培訓以及倡議工作。佢近年喺國際會議中發布 Dementia 腦退化症照顧態度的16條原則，藉此加強以人為本嘅應用，並且引入照顧腦退化症人士嘅正確照顧態度，以及推動腦退化症專科教育。現在有請 Kenny。
好，非常之多謝社聯啦，同埋 GIES 嘅邀請啦。咁我諗咧，頭先咧大家都有聽到兩位嘅 speaker 啦，就係阿 Dympna 啦同埋 Cathy 嘅分享嘅。咁我諗咧，第一陣咧，我哋都會講翻少少佢哋嘅一啲嘅 reminders 啦，然後之後都會分享下一啲我嘅睇法啦，或者而家喺香港樂齡科技或者做一個腦退化症嘅科技照顧啊，或者設計嘅時候要 concern 嘅嘢嘅。咁大家都有聽到佢哋嘅分享，我就唔再重複啦。咁我 highlight 咗少少一啲嘢嘅，譬如好似阿 Dympna 咁樣啦，其實佢講緊一個 co-design 嘅 approach 咧，其實係除咗講緊點樣令到AI 或者我哋用 technology 去協助佢哋生活之外咧，最重要一樣嘢就係講緊個 decision making， 點樣可以透過即係成個過程咧去 empower 到嗰個腦退化症人士同埋佢個 family members， 多過佢淨係有個 safety 啊或者係 monitoring 嘅一個工具咯。所以咧，我哋成個 general technologies 喺 Dementia 嘅發展咧，除咗我哋講緊有啲乜嘢想達至啊，有啲乜嘢可以協助到佢生活咧，同時間係講緊一個 empowerment 嘅，即係點樣可以從佢哋嗰個決定啊，或者佢哋嘅回饋個 feedback 咧，可以令到成件事咧係比較 co-create 啦。咁佢亦都有 mention 一啲關於 care partners 嘅。咁我哋喺Dementia 嘅照顧咧，我哋就唔叫 caregivers 嘅，因為 care partners 咧，我哋講緊係一個整體，身邊佢嘅所有人唔同嘅 stakeholders 都好重要嘅。咁所以咧，佢亦都有提到將嗰個屋企人啦，或者佢哋面對嘅生活嗰個 live experience 咧擺落個 technologies 度。咩叫 live experience 咧？就係真係佢哋遇到嗰個狀況之後嘅感受啦，或者佢哋期望佢哋嘅腦退化症嘅人士嘅生活係點咧？去設計一啲嘅 product 或者設計嘅一啲 software， 所以咧我哋喺個過程入邊咧，我哋好着重一啲關於 observations 啦，好着重一啲關於 qualitative 咧質性研究嘅一啲嘅內容等等。咁所以咧，阿 Dympna 都有提到呢一個部分 co-design 咧，其實就係講緊我哋點樣可以透過我哋嘅 professional 去 facilitate 呢一件事呈現到喺個 product 入邊咧。Dympna 亦都有提過 young onset 啦，即係我哋都明白腦退化症唔係即係長輩啦，咁可能係一啲60歲以下。甚至乎咧，我哋喺香港大概40零50歲嘅朋友，佢嘅 dementia 之後咧，佢究竟要一個乜嘢嘅 product？ 佢哋可能唔係一個 health 嘅 issues， 佢可能唔係一個 care 嘅 issues， 係講緊一個 rehabilitations 嘅方向，甚至乎係一個生活上點樣可以令到佢哋 keep 到個 quality of life。所以咧，我哋喺 dementia 個 spectrum 咧，唔係淨係長輩嘅，我哋都會諗下如果唔係長輩，佢係一個 young onset 嘅朋友，咁我哋點樣 make use of 佢嗰個 capability 咧？我哋做 dementia 咧有好多嘅 approach 咧，都好多時喺香港可能講緊一個 problem solving 啊，講緊佢有啲咩問題啊，我哋要處理啊。但係我哋好少從個 capability 啦、potential 啦，同埋我哋做 assessment 嘅時候有冇 assess 一啲佢哋嘅能力，而點樣可以 preserve 佢哋嘅能力同埋發揮好啲嘅功能咧？我諗個 product 或者我哋嘅 general technologies 咧，喺另一方面除咗係解決佢哋嘅一啲 deficits，another way out 就係其實有冇啲嘢可以加強佢嘅 potential， 甚至乎可以俾佢發揮多少少。可能我哋譬如講台灣，佢可能整一個關於 Dementia Cafe， 佢教啲腦退化症人士沖咖啡。咁但係佢可能喺一個 general product 啊，或者喺個 technological product， 佢要協助一個 Dementia 嘅朋友去整到咖啡。其實嗰部咖啡機可能都要再整過一啲特別嘅arrangement 啊等等。所以咧喺個過程入邊咧，我哋唔係淨係講緊我哋可以點樣 offer 啲乜嘢令到佢個生活質素好啲，甚至乎係講緊點樣可以透過我哋嘅 technologies 咧發揮到佢嘅功能或者發揮到佢嘅技能。 最尾啦，Dementia都有提到一啲關於其實點樣可以個人化啦 ，personalization 啦，點樣可以咧講緊 dementia 咧，其實離唔開咧都係講緊呢個 person-centered care。無論係阿 Cathy 啦同埋阿 Dementia都有講緊一樣嘢，就係有冇以人為本咧？我哋做 product， 其實我哋係因為我哋見到嗰個需要，然之後話俾佢聽，你用呢個 product 就解決呢個需要啊，定係都會因應住佢哋嘅 personality 啊、background 啊，甚至乎咧可以喺嗰個即係 product 入邊去 tune。可以輸入一啲佢哋嘅個人資料，而令到嗰個 product 更加人性化。而家咧，我哋講緊 AI 同埋一個 technology 咧，絕對有可能做到呢件事，甚至乎佢係 cater 一個院舍，因為我哋都相信人腦都未必記到300個院友，但係 AI 或者 technology 係記到300個人嘅時候，可能 through 佢哋嘅眼睛啊 ，through 嗰個電腦嘅一個 detection 啊，可以即時可以將佢個 profile 啊、background 啊，甚至乎佢嘅一啲喜好咧 personalize 咗佢咧，其實嗰個 technologies 嘅 input 係好重要咯。咁至於咧，阿 Cathy 咧頭先都有提到啦，即係佢嗰個即係 product hunt， 其實咧我諗咧呢一個咧講緊一個 return 一個 basic human needs。其實去到 advanced stage 嘅 dementia 咧，我哋唔會講好多咩 cognitive training 啊 ，cognitive stimulation 都講少少啦。但係我哋最主要係講緊一個 sensory comfort 啊 ，well-being 啊，同埋佢哋喺嗰個生活上咧有啲乜嘢嘅色彩咯。其實喺 late stage 嘅朋友，佢可能已經面對緊好多吞嚥嘅問題啊，可能係臥床啊，佢未必好能夠可能行出房啊。咁我哋就會諗下佢屋喺個房嗰個 environment 係點啦，我哋嘅 lighting 係點樣去 offer 啦，甚至乎咧佢嘅日常生活咧，除咗我哋所謂嘅照顧人員之外，仲有冇人可以陪伴佢咧？我相信喺香港而家我哋面對嘅問題就係個 manpower shortage 啦，一間院舍冇可能個個都可以陪到嗰個老友記或者個長輩嘅時候咧，有啲乜嘢嘅 product 係可以有一個陪伴嘅作用咧？我哋以往就可能BB 公仔啦咁樣，咁但係個 BB 嘅公仔其實有冇 tailor made 到佢嘅 need 咧？甚至乎頭先咧都有啲即係參加者有問到佢個 texture 係點啊？其實用一啲唔同嘅 sensory texture 咧，可以令到佢哋 more 有一個叫 security 啦，有啲安全感啦，甚至乎咧有一啲唔同嘅 touching 嘅感覺，佢會有啲 sensory interventions 啦。你再睇翻Cathy 嘅 video 入邊咧，佢亦都有攬呢個動作。其實人咧都係有一個 intimacy 嘅，即係當佢去到一個 late stage，我哋點樣知道佢係受到一個 love 啊？點樣可以 provide 到一個 love 啊？其實 is not 淨係講緊個言語咯，可能講緊唔同嘅，望到一啲佢中意嘅嘢啦，聽到一啲佢想聽嘅説話啦，可能聞到一啲佢中意嘅氣味啦，可能食到一啲佢覺得好開心嘅食物，同埋 touching。即係一個觸碰啊，一啲唔同嘅動作對佢嚟講，可能錫下佢塊面啊，攬下佢啊，或者嗰個 hug 咧可以主動去攬下嗰個老友記啦。其實呢啲動作咧，都去到 late stage 嘅 dementia 嘅朋友咧，佢哋唔會忘記，佢亦都覺得呢一樣嘢係重要嘅。咁所以咧，係回顧翻佢哋兩位嘅嘉賓嘅 speaker， 其實我哋都講啊，我哋聽咗咁多樣嘢，我哋係咪 learn from 個 experience 啊？其實定係要 learn from 個 reflection on 個 experience 咧？即係話我哋聽完之後，我哋點樣因應住佢哋分享嘅內容，然之後咧去 apply 去我哋即係本地嘅一個即係參與同照顧啊。所以咧喺Cathy 入邊咧，佢講過幾個重點嘅，要有一個 process 嘅 observations 啦，係成個過程咧都係漫長嘅，可能你係需要有一啲嘅 video 啊。或者去一路 review， 令到個 product 咧更加趨向人性化啦。第二，佢哋講嘅 compassionate design 咧，就係講緊唔係一個冷冰冰嘅 product， 佢係講緊一個 person-centered care approach 裏邊嘅內容啦 ，sensory intervention 同埋講緊一個 connection， 其實係回應緊我哋最傳統嘅 Professor Tom Kilwood 嘅 Kilwood Pharma 入邊講過5個元素，我臨尾會講少少俾大家聽。其實點樣設計一樣嘢係叫做對個 dementia 好咧？咩叫做好嘅 quality of life 咧？其實係向住5個元素發展嘅。當然啦，佢亦都有提到有一啲 late stage 嘅朋友有 apathy 同 disengagement， 即係話有冷漠同埋咧對身邊嘅環境唔在意。呢一樣嘢我哋要 address 嘅，唔係話佢唔嘈啦、唔出聲啊、所謂唔搞事啊呢啲咁樣咧就由佢。其實反而呢一啲嘅長輩咧係好需要我哋多啲去 approach 啦，去令到佢 keep 到同身邊嘅 connection 啦。唔好覺得佢都冇反應啊，或者佢都講唔到好多嘢咧，就可能咧就唔需要做任何嘅 intervention， 絕對唔係嘅。其實反而係需要多少少我哋啲同事啊，去過去同佢傾下偈啊，有個笑容啊，甚至乎咧可以多啲除咗護理以外嘅觸碰。咩叫除咗護理以外嘅觸碰咧？即係唔係淨係帶佢去廁所換片做護理嘅時候先掂佢。喺之前咧都有個 study 都有講過，原來咧如果撇除晒呢啲護理咧，一個禮拜咧可能得30幾分鐘係有人同佢傾偈同埋互動嘅啫。 咁所以成件事係好恐怖喎，唔係1日30幾分鐘啊，係1個禮拜喎。所以咧，我哋咧除咗喺護理上係重要之外咧，我哋都要諗下護理以外咧，其實我哋俾緊啲乜嘢喺個 late stage 嘅朋友去做咧。咁最尾阿 Cathy 都講咗一個好緊要嘅部分，就係所有嘅 product 都要 self-sustainable 同埋 self-financing model 嘅。你唔可以做一樣嘢出嚟咧，佢係唔落地嘅，個市場係冇需要嘅。諗呢個問題都好緊要㗎，即係喂，我哋諗嘅就係 infection control， 喂嗰啲物件咧係咪可以抹㗎？係咪可以噴消毒藥水啊？嗱，呢啲嘢咧其實都係喺個 product 嘅產品嘅設計上面都係一個 concern， 因為呢啲我哋就叫做落地嘅 product。當你整咗一樣嘢能夠落到地咧，佢自然會慢慢成為一個 self-sustainable 或者 self-financing 得到嘅 product。所以咧，呢啲咧都係頭先兩位 speaker 咧會 mention 嘅嘢嚟嘅。咁我自己都分享下，我哋喺本地咧需要留意啲乜嘢啦。咁其實喺 WHO 嘅 platform 咧都有一個叫做 GDO 嘅 platform 嘅。咁我都係其中一個 expert reviewer 啦，就係睇緊全球咧有啲咩唔同嘅 protocol， 或者有啲乜嘢對 dementia 好嘅一啲嘅內容咧，可以咧喺WHO 嗰個 platform 度分享啦。咁而家咧 WHO 咧都係有7個主題嘅。咁 related to 我哋樂齡科技或者 general technologies 咧，你會見到喺 information system 啦，同埋喺整個唔同嘅題目上邊咧都會有科技嘅 involvement 嘅。咁我哋喺本地咧都做緊一啲關於 dementia prevention 嘅科技嘅介入啦。咁呢個都係我稍後會講少少嘅。而家咧 WHO 都有咧每一年咧大概咧都會出一個叫 From Plan to Impact 嘅。咁都係嗰句啦，將我哋咧能夠做到嘅嘢咧落地咧係緊要嘅。咁而家就出到第8啦，個 topic 叫做 Time to Deliver。我亦都想分享一下咧，其實有啲乜嘢嘅產品咧，而家係做緊嘅咧全球。第一咧，其實你會發覺咧，就係可能一啲關於有個平板電腦可以協助嗰個腦退化症嘅朋友揾翻佢翻房嗰個路線啊，揾翻佢翻屋企嘅路線嘅一個裝置啦。亦都有啲叫做戴耳式嘅健康監測啦。亦都有啲因為 AI 可以 detect 到佢有冇啲危機行為，可能咧減少佢受傷嘅機會啦。另外咧，亦都有啲人工嘅阿凡達咁樣啦，可能有一個 AI 嘅人咧去做一啲 daily reminders 啦。咁啊，亦都有一啲咧講緊追蹤佢每一日嘅動態啦，睇佢喐唔喐啦，去減少佢跌倒嘅危機啦。咁我哋自己耆智園咧就 focus 多啲喺燈光系統啦，所以你見到 SkyJoy 咧就係講緊嗰個 lighting system 點樣影響個生理時鐘同埋 circadian rhythm 啦。另外咧，亦都有講緊一啲關於點樣 keep check 佢每日做嘅內容，而去睇翻佢個生活質素係點啦。keep check 下佢個 routine 會唔會有一啲令到佢不安嘅因素去減除啦，甚至乎佢每一日做緊啲咩事咧，點樣令到佢整體嘅生活質素好啲。頭先我講嗰9個 project 咧，都係喺一個全球嘅即係叫做關於 technologies 嘅一個 pitching 或者一個competition 入邊咧，一啲比較 highlight 嘅 product 嚟嘅。咁所以如果大家有興趣喺 Dementia 呢一個部分咧去發展，去考慮佢哋嘅 product 咧，可以都從呢啲嘢去參考嘅。咁本地我哋覺得而家應該可以有啲咩做啊？其實而家本地咧其中一個好大嘅 topic 就係講緊 dementia prevention， 就係講緊喺 Lancet 咧2024年出咗14個 risk factor 啦，點樣可以減少佢危機因素而令到少啲機會有 dementia 啦。咁其實佢呢14個 risk factor 咧都已經喺ADI 啦，即係 Alzheimer's Disease International 咧已經公布咗啦。而2023年嘅 report 咧已經係一個好詳細講咗每一個部分係點嘅。咁我哋喺香港咧都要留意翻究竟我哋嘅譬如聽力差啦，即係我哋嘅 hearing loss 有7% 啦，同埋咧可能咧就係講緊 air pollution 啊，甚至乎咧我哋咧傳統講嘅三高啊、social withdrawal 啊、depression 啊等等咧點樣影響 dementia？咁同科技有咩關係咧？就係點樣 keep track 呢啲 data 咧，去令到我哋嘅市民能夠早啲 aware 呢啲嘅危機因素。所以咧，我哋咧賽馬會智康健計劃咧都做咗一個咁嘅 project， 聯同咗7間 NGO 啦，一齊就做咗一個叫 Easy Screen， 即係中大網上嘅認知測試。透過呢個 technologies 咧，我哋可以喺大概10分鐘至15分鐘內咧，去 detect 喺屋企做一個 screening test 啦。然之後咧，我哋做完呢個 screening test 咧，我哋就會知道佢係需要即係關注啊，定係所謂合格嘅。如果需要關注咧，我哋會進一步咧安排醫生啦，同埋相關嘅 assessment 啦。咁我哋而家咧喺耆智園咧，亦都咧開放緊一個叫做腦退化症嘅風險因素登記名冊。咁所以如果大家有興趣咧，請去 www.jccpa.org.hk 咧去推廣呢一個風險因素。因為咧，如果我哋喺個 general technologies 入邊咧攞到一啲數據，或者知道我哋本地嘅 risk factor 係點咧，我哋可以做好多嘅唔同嘅 product 嘅 design， 去令到成個整體 dementia 嘅出現率或者個 prevalence 減低嘅。咁頭先都有講到咧，其實我哋點樣去做到 dementia 嘅嘢咧？首先你要知道佢嘅 background 咧 personality 啦，佢係乜嘢 stage 嘅 dementia 啦，佢係咩 type 嘅 dementia 啦，同埋咧佢嘅生活嘅狀況會係點？呢個咧係一個最 basic 我哋叫做 Tom Kitwood 嘅一個 theory 咧。喺設計產品嘅時候咧，你需要做個人化嘅話咧，你要諗呢5樣嘢。 產出嚟嘅嘢係有啲咩需要咧？最主要圍繞住5樣嘢 ：comfort、identity、occupation、inclusion 同 attachment， 令到佢哋有舒泰啦，好似黑咁樣啦，令到佢哋有一種即係安心感啦。identity 係令到佢哋咧唔會話忘記咗自己嘅過去啦，可以 keep 住到佢哋嗰個生活質素啦。occupation 就係講緊佢有 engagement 啦，每一日都過得開心啦，同埋匹配佢嘅能力去設計啲嘢。inclusion 咧就係話，就算佢唔同咩 stage 都好啦，佢都可以咧同身邊嘅人啊，或者同身邊嘅一啲嘅活動咧有聯繫嘅。咁最尾 attachment 咧就係講緊關係啦，點樣同其他老友記嘅關係啦，點樣同職員嘅關係啦，點樣同家人嘅關係啦，甚至乎佢同機構有咩關係。所以如果設計一個關於 Dementia 嘅 product 或者一個 general technologies related 嘅嘢，我哋最尾想 achieve 啲乜嘢啊？咁就係呢個 Tom Kilflower 入邊講嘅呢5個方向啦。咁啊我咧頭先咧主持人都有講關於一個叫做Dementia 嘅16個 caring principle 嘅，咁我就唔會逐個講啦，因為時間有限。但係如果大家有興趣咧，都可以上網打 Dementia 呢個字啦，就會睇翻我哋而家做 Dementia 咧有一個16個最基本嘅 caring principle。喺設計咧 product 嘅時候咧，都要考慮埋呢啲因素咧，會比較好啲嘅。咁最尾呢個 slide 啦，其實咧你會見到咧 Dementia 咧我哋唔好淨係睇到成個字，就係個 Dementia 呢個 disease。其實我哋慢慢睇下。飛歐咗其他字，你會見到 Dementia 入邊咧有個 me 字嘅，咁所以 as 一個 conclusion 啦，其實咧成個即係workshop 嘅 section 咧都係講緊我哋唔係淨係覺得佢哋係 user 嚟嘅，佢哋都係一個 co-creator， 所以我哋要 involve 埋 Dementia 嘅朋友啦，同埋佢嘅 care partners 咧一齊去設計呢啲 product， 令到嗰件事更加以人為本。同埋咧，我哋頭先咧Dympna 都有講過一樣嘢，就係叫 with the person， 唔係 for the person。with the person 即係話我哋係 stay together。for 個 person 咧就係你一個 professional，as 一個叫做 power leaders 咧去介紹啲嘢俾佢。所以頭先講嗰2樣嘢咧，都係我哋要記住嘅，就係如果設計任何 product 要落地人性化，唔好淨係諗住你點樣去 serve 啲 Dementia 嘅朋友，佢嘅回饋都好重要嘅。咁我希望咧今日咧我嘅分享咧就去到呢度啦。如果大家有咩興趣咧，可以咧去翻賽馬會耆智園啦，或者可以聯絡翻我嘅。咁啊，多謝各位今日嚟聽我嘅少少分享啦，唔該晒咁多位。